All right, welcome back, folks, to Dirty Boots Capital. Today we have a great guest with us today who's going to share some awesome education with us. His name is Leo Kanell. He is the host of a podcast that is called Seven Figure Funding. So take a look at that podcast. Amazing interviews on that, as well as take a look at his website, which has the same name, Seven Figure Funding. That website has, man, I've looked at it, tremendous amount of value, tremendous amount of free information, blogs. I was reading some of your blogs out there, Leo, and man, it's just great education that we're not getting from either school or other sources. So, Leo, thank you for being here. Welcome to Dirty Boots Capital.
Great to be here, Tony. Excited to connect and share everything we can with the audience and empower people, like you said, with the information and teachings that maybe we didn't learn in school but should have.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. The empowering of people. You do that, I do that. Man, it's so important that we help people these days. Tell folks a little bit about what you do and how you help people.
Yeah, absolutely. So we serve two communities. We serve small business owners and entrepreneurial people, sometimes side hustlers, real estate investors. And at the same time as we're serving them, we also work with a lot of business coaches, consultants, B2B professionals who are serving those business owners as well. And we provide them access to financing, whether it's a business line of credit, a loan that does not require collateral, or even our 0% interest business credit card stacking program, just a marketplace of options so we can get funding and money in the hands of entrepreneurs, small business owners, investors who, know what to do with it and are just looking for, the best financing possible to make their dream into reality.
Yeah, and as you're going through that, man, I'm just thinking about some of our previous conversations we've had, and it's great that you do that, but you have a massive why you do this, right? Sure, you have your platform, you have your podcast, all good stuff there, but I want to get in your head a little bit, in terms of why. Why are you doing this? As far as, trying to help people start businesses, trying to help these entrepreneurs or these folks who wanted to get into real estate. I know you have a big heart and you have a big why you want to do this and why you think people should own businesses and should own real estate, these assets, right? Why they should own those. So help us understand that and why you're doing this.
Yeah, absolutely, Tony. So after the recession of 08, 09, it's about 2012, 2013, and I'm trying to figure out what my next move is. And so I've got some different business ideas, and I go to the local bank, and the local bank's like, sorry, Leo, we're not going to give you a dime. Times are tough. And I'm like, wow, all those years, all that money that I put in the bank, and it meant nothing at the end of the day. So I do this deep dive into what does it actually take to qualify for financing for your business. Sure, in our country, we'll give a $100,000 student loan out to someone who's 18. Doesn't seem like the best idea, but if you want to start a business, getting a business loan is very, very difficult. And so I just deep dove into that, thousands of hours, categorizing, researching, trial and erroring, finally figured out a formula to get financing for my businesses, started to help some friends and family. And all of a sudden I realized actually, maybe this is the business that I should be in. I should be serving all these entrepreneurs, real estate investors, small business owners who desperately need access to money and don't know how to do it. And so if I could serve them, there's no audience I'd rather serve. Every time I go to an entrepreneurial event, I mean, these are my people. As that old Apple commercial says, the people who are crazy enough to believe they can change the world often are the people who do. And so I love serving those people, getting money in their hands so that they can provide economies and products and services that improve our lives. And at the same time, my other why is, hey, I've got 5 kids, a big family to take care of. And so for me, it's equal. I want to serve and make a difference by getting money in the hands of entrepreneurial people, and then obviously serve my family at the same time.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff. And too many of us we're stuck in the kind of the W-2 environment, the job environment, working 40 hours or more, 50 or 60 hours a week. And we have these dreams, right? And I love how on your website you actually point out, and hopefully I don't butcher this, you actually state on your website, entrepreneurs are going to be the folks who solve some of the world's biggest problems. So if you have a dream, if you have a thought, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to start a business, Leo is the guy you have to call to help figure out the funding piece of it. Because obviously we need money to do the things we do, whether we're entrepreneurs or real estate investors, whatever it is. I saw on your website also, you also have some tax information there. You have how to set up your entity. I mean, it's more than just funding, right? That you provide people, provide this education, this, and it's more than just funding. You help them on many aspects.
Absolutely. We want to provide as many resources and then quality, relationships we have with those who, provide value to business owners and entrepreneurs and investors. And so if that's getting the right, business entity set up, maybe something that's an S corporation where you can limit your tax liability and avoid paying self-employment tax. If you can structure those things the right way where you're building some business credit, and what a lot of investors, especially in real estate, struggle with is kind of this separation between the business and their personal life. And if they can start to really build things up in the name of the business, get financing in the name of the business as much as possible, then they can really start to provide some of that separation and stop commingling the business and personal together. And so, yeah, we want to educate, we want to empower, and of course get them the best financing, but then show them, hey, this is how it works, right? If you build your business, if you take good care of your business bank account, if you understand how credit cards affect your personal credit score substantially, then people can become more fundable in the future and continue to set themselves up for success and growth.
Yeah, one of the things, you're going through all these things like a la carte, like this is all that we do. And the thing that's going through my mind, Leo, is man, why doesn't the school system, the education system teach us this? And you and I aren't the only ones that kind of question this. There's so many entrepreneurs and real estate investors that I speak to, that you speak to. I mean, wouldn't it be much easier if the education system taught this and we got out of school, graduated high school with some amount of knowledge on, how our credit score works and how to, some of this financial education that you're talking about? Wouldn't it be great if you graduated high school and knew some of this?
It would be so helpful because it would provide a financial roadmap when, new high school graduates go to college and take out very expensive, large student loans to get degrees in, different fields that are not going to translate into actually making good income to pay those student loans back, be able to live the, quote unquote American dream, buy a house and start a family. And you see more and more millennials delaying, having a family, buying a house, doing the things that are going to create financial stability because they aren't getting that education. And so that's where I feel like that's part of our mission is how can we educate and empower people? Because at the end of the day, everybody a few years in, to, even a W-2 job that they like realizes that they're going to have to do something on the side in order to really create some independence and freedom in their life. And if they don't do that, all of a sudden time goes very fast and you're age 65 and you're finding out, wow, I'm not in a good place. I can't retire. I haven't been able to take care of my family the way I want to. I haven't been able to travel, take multiple weeks off like you just did a few weeks ago. And it's that freedom that I think the majority of us crave. And for those of us who are willing to accept that risk, that it's actually more risky to stay in that path versus I can become a real estate investor. I can start a small business. I can solve a problem for a big group of people and get paid really well for doing that. You start to realize that's actually the lower risk path to take.
So let's pull on that a little bit in terms of, a lot of folks, again, a lot of folks who are W-2, and I don't poo-poo W-2. There's certainly some benefits to that. However, you're trading your time for money. We've heard about that many times over. You're trading your time for money, and so you're reliant on that job, and a lot of that paycheck might actually be going into the bank, and so you're saving for savers. They're saving that cash, which at the end of the day is impacted by inflation. What was a dollar saved is really now only maybe 90 cents, or maybe in the last couple of years, maybe it feels only like 80 cents. So you're losing purchasing power on those dollars that you've saved. And so this shift in a mindset where you start to shift towards maybe instead of dollars in the bank, maybe I should have assets instead of dollars in the bank. So assets in terms of a business, assets in terms of real estate, things that are going to pay you while you're sleeping, while you're on vacation. You had mentioned, yeah, I was away for pretty much the month of September, and it was great. I had folks back here, watching things for me, but pretty much I was making money while I was on vacation. And I don't say that to be braggadocious. That's not a braggadocious thing. People who know me know that I'm not braggadocious. I'm a so to speak a blue collar working man. That's my background. But this is why you and I are here, is to help people understand they need to think differently going into the future here in terms of assets. So this whole building a business as an entrepreneur or building a real estate portfolio as a real estate investor allows you to create this passive income, or even this active income, that you can be making money while you're sleeping or while you're away on vacation. And so these are all the things you teach people, and you help people with this, not only education in terms of the tools that you provide them, but also in terms of the mindset and how they can think differently. Again, I was looking at your website and some of the blogs. I was looking at one in particular called Successful Behaviors of Smart Entrepreneurs. Maybe take us down that a little bit in terms of folks that are saying, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur. I have some great ideas. What are some traits that are, kind of like indicative of a great entrepreneur? What are some traits, some characteristics?
Yeah, for sure. So I definitely feel like if you're an entrepreneur, if you're somebody who's trying to build something, even if it's just a small real estate portfolio within your family, that there are certain values and principles that you have to build those investments, your business and your family on that as a foundation. And so it's interesting, Tony, because back in 2016, I started a previous business funding company, and we grew really fast. A lot of employees, millions of dollars in sales very quickly, but we were built on a foundation of values and principles. And when I brought in additional partners and we didn't have things defined, and a year later, all of a sudden, they're in the office just playing Xbox all the time, breaking their word to our partners, our clients, and just violating everything that I believe. Then I actually had to leave and start all over, and the result was 7 figures funding. And when we started this company, the first thing I did is I met with everybody who was going to join the team. I'm like, these are our values and principles. And number one at the top of the list is we're going to do what we say we're going to do. We're going to fulfill our word. We're going to move heaven and earth to make sure we do that. And just starting with those simple things of doing what you say you're going to do, focusing on solutions, being unreasonably optimistic when you're in the face of adversity, and pushing through and being relentless. Like, these are some of the values and principles that I believe lead to success, whether you're, starting a business, whether you're, facing difficult decisions. When you have these values and principles that are not negotiable, that you can fall back upon, well, when you come across that difficult solution or situation or decision, well, the decision is easy to make because you have these values and principles that you live by. Ray Dalio, the multi-billionaire investor, has this book called Principles that he lives by. And so another guy I follow, Patrick Bet-David, talks about values and principles all the time. And I find that if you define your values and principles in your terms of what matters, and you write them down and you put them on the wall in your house, in your office, and you live by those, then that makes such a tremendous difference in your success or failure at the end of the day.
That's amazing. And it's so true. I do coaching with folks who want to get into real estate. And one of the first things we go through is their why. Like, we don't even start talking about
Huge.
really real estate and what
Yes.
assets to invest in and how to get funding and all these different we don't even talk about that. Like, the first meeting or two, we talk about their why. And it's so important to know your why. And like you're saying, it's so important to know your value system, because once you know your why or your value system, the other types of decisions become easier. And I see it with folks. And, hey, I'm doing coaching. I'm asking folks, hey, does this sound more interesting, or this, or what about funding, this or that? And they come back to, and they it's so funny because they mimic it back to me. They're like, but that doesn't match my why. And I just smile and I'm like, that's excellent. That's why we go
So
through
good.
that, right? And that's why, you're talking about the value system. It's so important. Before you even talk about the product or your customer or anything, you got to know yourself. and you got to know your why and your value system. And so this is all this stuff, and why I wanted to have why my why why I wanted to have you on the show here, Leo, is because based on the conversations we have had, you're out there trying to help people. You're not trying to sell them something. If there's a product on the ass end of a conversation, great. Where they end up working with you or me. We're in this to help people. We are very much here to serve people, and if they do business with us, great. But at the end of the day, I mean, I encourage folks, just go take a look at Leo's website. Look at the free content he puts out there, right? And look at his podcast. I mean, doing these podcasts just they take a lot of time, and they take, take a little bit of money in terms of editing and staff to kind of make them look pretty. It takes a lot to make this look pretty on this side. So I appreciate my editor out there who does good stuff, but we're out there to serve, to help people. And so Leo, I appreciate you. Tell us a little bit about, so somebody who wants to do has a great idea, has their value systems, has their why in place to go ahead and get funding. What do they have to do? Like how does that process work with seven-figure funding?
Yeah, great question. So, right, you've got your why, you got some values and principles, and then you need to have a proof of concept. And that means you have proved out that there's a demand for your product or service as a business owner, or if you're a real estate investor, that you're not just making these things up and hoping they work out, that you're following a proven system like something Dirty Boots Capital, and you teach someone, and you've got decades of experience that this system is very successful and puts the odds in their favor. So once you have, all right, I've got proof of concept, I've got someone with a roadmap that I can be confident in, now I need to figure out what does it take to be fundable. And whenever you're starting out brand new and you're getting a business entity set up, maybe an LLC, and you're starting to try to build that business, the first thing that everybody's going to look at is going to be your personal credit score. And so if you have good personal credit, then, lenders are going to look at you and say, well, you take good care of your personal credit, you'll probably take good care of your business credit at the same time, and they'll really look at your personal credit first. And so when you're talking about personal credit, there's two things. Number one, there's a FICO score and a Vantage score, right? If you're on Credit Karma and you're like, oh, I've got great credit, I've got a high credit score, but Vantage score is what Credit Karma gives you, and that's not what lenders use. They use a FICO score, which you can get at Experian.com. And so FICO score is the first thing. That score really matters. If you can get your FICO score above 700, then that's going to be very helpful. What are the steps to get that credit score high? Most of us just think, oh, if I just make my payments on time, and that's a big part of it. That's 35% of your credit score. That's going to be very helpful. But 30% of your credit score is also how you use credit cards. And so if you keep those balances lower compared to the limits, if I have a $10,000 card, if I keep the balance below $3,000, $4,000, 30 to 40% of that limit, that's going to keep my credit score high. And then, of course, having a longer average age of account history. That's why grandma and grandpa often have a great credit score, because they've had credit cards open for 30 years. So you never want to close a credit card. You want to keep it open. You want to be smart and hopefully only use it for business reasons or in an emergency. But the personal credit's the first thing. And then the second thing is, can I start to build some credit, get a business credit card or two in the name of my business that doesn't report to personal credit? And then the next step is, can I take really good care of my business bank account, never bounce a check, never have insufficient funds? And those are a few of the three things that you want to do right from the get-go. And if you do those things, then you're going to be able to qualify for different financing options and be able to, get a good start to fund your business.
Yeah, that's gold right there, because there's a number of people I come across that don't understand their credit score. They don't understand what impacts it and how to improve it. So what you just shared there in that, that 30-second sound clip, yeah, if there's any viewers, listeners out there, just if you're working on your credit score, just rewind this about 30 seconds, a minute, re-listen to what Leo just said and do that, right? And that alone is going to provide value. What about from the standpoint, like, where do you guys get your funding to then be able to help people? Do you have debt partners? Do you use crowdfunding? Like, where do you get your funding from?
Yeah, great question. So we've, over the last decade, built out a marketplace of over 100 different funding sources and lending options. And it depends on what you're looking for, right? If you're looking for commercial, real estate financing to buy an apartment building, then we have a group of different lending options based on that type. If you're looking for, I just want unsecured, lines of credit that I can use for rehab, refurbish, that I can use to wholesale or tie up a property and move it forward, then we work with usually 5-year personal loans that are no collateral required. So you have that money in the bank account, you can get it seasoned. We work with our 0% interest business credit card stacking program. So all of these are different finance types, whether it's business credit card stacking, whether it's a business line of credit, or even an SBA loan in terms of maybe buying a commercial building that you're going to cash flow, or an apartment building that's multifamily. And so all of these different options are available on this marketplace. When someone applies, then we look at all the different options, present them to the client, and the client's in the driver's seat to decide what's best. Before I started this, I'm a skeptical person. So I want to know, is this really the best option that I can qualify for? And that was my requirement as we built this company, is I wanted to be able to look people in the eye and say, hey, I've got every option available in our country on this marketplace. I guarantee you this is the best option that you qualify for and that exists. And that best funding guarantee for me was super important. And so it's a marketplace of 100 plus lending options out there, and we present the best option that you qualify for.
Thing that's going through my mind as you're sharing those different options, with real estate investors, we go from needing funding to purchase a single family fix and flip. So we may need, money to purchase, but then we also need separate money to actually do the rehab project. So those could be two different types of funding vehicles. And then we go off and we buy a multifamily building, which could be a totally different type of, because it's outside, could be outside of residential funding. It could fall into commercial funding, especially if you're buying your multifamily into an LLC. Now that's commercial funding, which is a third amongst the whole a la carte package you just shared. That's like a third funding type option. So as far as real estate investors, there's so many different pots that we have our hands in. There's a lot of folks who end up creating their own property management company, which may fall into the SBA loan side of
For
things.
sure.
Right. So as far as any real estate investors that are out there listening or watching this, what I'm talking about, because, we get involved in so many different aspects of a purchase, of a rehab, needing money to, buy supplies and actually do the rehab, and then all these different options. So I like, Leo, that you have those options and you have that variety for folks to work through. In terms of turnaround time for these loans, are we talking like is it 6 weeks to get approval? Is it, 45 days? What does it look like for approval on loans? And I know we're dealing with a variety different types of loans here, but it's hard to say. An SBA loan may take longer. I get it, but typically for, let's say real estate investors, because that's primarily, folks who are probably listening here, for real estate investors, what are we talking?
Yeah, great question, Tony. So for the over 2,000 real estate investors that we've served and funded over the years, a lot of them have a lot of different options when it comes to closing on the property, like you said, and that's that one type of financing and having various levels of down payment. And we've got those options too, but there's a lot of options out there with that. What we found that, like you were pointing out, the other side is having the additional capital that's not included in the transaction to do the rehab, to do the fix and flip, to make those improvements, and then in the future be able to maybe refinance that out or just sell it to the next buyer, all built out and much more valuable. And that's where your profit's at. And so it's having access to that unsecured capital, the no collateral stuff, that's loans, lines of credit, 0% interest, business credit cards, that you have that cash that you can tap into. And the best is when it's revolving, right? Because then I can use it and then I cash out or I refinance the property, I get my money back, pay that back down. amount, and I can go back and use that over and over and over again. And the cool thing is some of these limits will really increase. I've got one business credit card with cash accessibility that now has a $115,000 credit limit. And that gives you a lot of flexibility when you've got to, because there's always a couple things that happen with real estate investments, at least in my experience. They end up taking a little bit longer than you think to actually get the project done to sell. And they end up being sometimes a little bit more expensive. And so when you can have that revolving credit available and be able to tap into that, that is super important and very effective. And so that's what we focus on. And so in terms of timeframes, loans are funding usually in about 3 to 5 days. These are no collateral loans that fund your bank account. And then the business line of credit or the business credit cards usually are available within about 2 weeks. And it can be very nice, especially if you get 0% interest up to as long as 18 months. And that gives you a lot of time to be able to use that money interest free, especially as you're growing your real estate investment empire. And then, of course, the longer you're in real estate, the more you're like, well, I just want to keep building and have access to as much credit as possible. And especially if I can do it in the name of the business, to where if I max out a credit line, it doesn't affect my personal credit. And so it's usually anywhere between a week or two. Now, of course, like you said, if it's an SBA loan, then it's typically going to be 4 to 6 weeks in that example. But for mostly real estate investors, it's that gap funding. Can I get those lines of credit that are available to make those property deals happen, those fix and flip transactions where I need to come up with some cash pretty quick, and it's not necessarily included in the first, mortgage, first lien transaction that I get to buy the property.
But all of this, it first starts with a conversation. And for the listeners, the viewers out there, if you're looking for funding, call Leo, connect with Leo, start that conversation. If he has a vehicle for you, great. If he doesn't, he's going to tell you, right? But chances are you just heard his whole a la carte of, what he has available to him. And he's been serving real estate investors for a long time. So it first starts with a conversation. So reach out to him. Leo, I know on your website, you also have some freebies. We all love freebies. You have a free ebook and some other things. The free ebook is the business funding formula. And so people can get that free. Go into your website, correct?
Absolutely. Yep. They can go ahead and get that book free. It's a bestseller on Amazon. And any of the buttons you click there, you can get a free pre-approval really within just a few minutes. And the number one question most people have, all right, if I look at my options, is this going to hurt my credit? And the good news is we jumped through experience hoops so that it's a soft credit check. There's no negative impact to your credit to get a free pre-approval. And of course, to get that digital copy of the business funding formula, we also pass out for free the Credit College platform. And we want you to share it with friends and family because we're on a mission to eradicate disinformation related to credit once and for all. And so those are the gifts we give for free.
You're awesome, Leo. I appreciate how you serve people, the integrity that you bring to the business, the education that you provide, the tools, the freebies, all that. I so appreciate you, Leo, and I appreciate your time today. Tell the viewers, tell the audience, how do they find you? Again, your website, your email, whatever you want to provide. How do people get a hold of you?
You betcha. Just 7 figures funding, the digit 7 figures funding, or also 7figures.com, the digit 7 and then figures.com. And all of our information, our credit college, the business funding formula book, your free pre-approval. And like you said, we've got a number of videos and just everything we can do to empower you and make you fundable is on those 2 websites.
Awesome. Thank you for making it easy for us, Leo. And for the viewers, the audience out there, one of the biggest questions I get is, Tony, how do I get funding for real estate? How do I start? Well, you know what? How do you start? Call Leo, have that conversation, take some action. He's not going to bite. He's only going to help you with this. So give him a call and work it from there. Leo, thank you so much for being on the show.